How many women?
80.
80.
Entire village.
An entire village of women were raped in front of their husbands, in front of their brothers, in front of their fathers, gang raped, thrown onto the streets so that the men would be handcuffed to the trees and they had to watch. One story. Second story. You have issues where you think that when you keep on saying it, you get used to it. You never get used to it. You never ever get used to this. I'm going to tell you a story of a woman that on her wedding night was raped in front of her husband, her father, her entire family, the guests that came, raped in front of their fathers. I'm going to tell you about a woman that was pregnant, her husband was shot, killed, raped, gang raped, and when she had a baby, the baby was born with a broken arm. I'm going to tell you another story about Tufail Matlu and Wami Farouk, who were 8 years old, who were playing carom board, which is a game that's called similar to chess. The army decided to shoot the young boys. Well, one was a different situation. The other, one of them, he was shot in the back of the head. He was killed instantly. Happened in 2008. And then we had an uprising. Because of that incident, the people came to the streets. They were demonstrating against the occupation forces. They were demonstrating against Zionism. They were demonstrating against the illegal acts. They were demonstrating against murder of young people. So another person was killed. It happens, you know. Collateral damage, they call it. Collateral damage. On the third day, another person was killed. On the fourth day, 2 more people were killed. On the fifth day, 10 people were killed. In total, in the span of 2 months, 123 boys, 28 people were killed. I would mention boys, but in one of them, there was a girl that was shot in the head, right through here. She looked out of her balcony window to make sure that the situation is okay. Where's my brother? Army man, sniper, shot in the head. A woman looking out of her window. I don't think she was carrying a gun. I don't think that she was planning to pour hot oil. Her name was Fancy. It's a nickname, but it was called, her name was Fancy. I'm going to tell you about illegal acts, laws that are passed in India called the PSA, Public Safety Act. Just think about this. Public Safety Act, whereby the army can lock up any person for 2 years without trial. 2 years under an act called safety. Most of these people that go into jail, as soon as they come out, they go back in. After another 2 years, they come out, they go back in. There are some people in jail that have spent 23 years? 23 years in jail. Haven't seen the light of day. And they've given up hope. I'm going to get a little bit personal now. Uzair's father is one of the most leading lawyers in Kashmir. He has done, Kuldeep Nair is a diplomat in India, and he wrote a book. In his autobiography, he said that if there was a record for the most number of free cases ever done, it would go to his father. His father fights for those people that are under these detention and illegal acts that are persecuted. He fights for them. And obviously, because he's my friend, I speak to his father quite a lot. And he mentioned to me that when I asked him that, what exactly, what can we do for these young people in jail? He goes, well, you have the privilege of living in the West. He didn't even say that. In Kashmir, he said, you have the privilege of living outside Vilayat, Firingi. You have the privilege of living outside of Kashmir. Can't you do anything? Can't you say anything to anybody? I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a guy. I may be a little bit older, but I'm just a guy. I have a family, I have work, I have my own life to deal with. I'm just a guy. But over the years, I realized that if I start thinking like this, and I think that somebody else is going to do it, it's going to be another 66 years. And then another 100 years. The responsibility is on every single one of us. On me, on you, on everyone. The responsibility is such that those that have the capability have the obligation to make a change, to do something. And if you have the knowledge, there is no excuse. There is no excuse not to do anything. In Akhirah, Allah will ask, on the Day of Judgment, Allah will ask you, you knew, but you did nothing. And I'm going to come back to Islam for a second, and it's a similar thing. If you have knowledge of Islam and you don't implement it, what's the name of it in Arabic? Munafiq. Right? Do any of you want to go in front of God and say to him, yes, I'm a munafiq. I'm a hypocrite. I knew, but I didn't do anything. Learn it. These kids, I'm not going to look at these, it's not healthy for me. It's a daily occurrence. Every single family in Kashmir has a story. Every single person in Kashmir has suffered. I'm going to go back to being a little bit personal. My father was thrown out of Kashmir in the 70s because he was active in politics, in advocacy for Kashmir. So they threw him out. He landed in Saudi, I was born, then we went to the UK. We were refugees. He was banned from coming back to Kashmir under the penalty of death. So he never went back. He died in 2004. We tried to send his body to Kashmir so that he could be buried there, in his ancestral land. The petition was blocked. They wouldn't permit it. Yeah. Yeah, you got one? I think you should. One folder? Yeah. So he wasn't allowed to go back. There are thousands of families like this, hundreds of thousands of families like this, that fled from Kashmir. Some were lucky. I was one of the very, very lucky few that managed to get to someplace different, to London, where I could be educated, where I could be learned, where I could have the English accent, where I can speak in front of people. Obviously, that I didn't learn, I inherited that, so it's not my skill. But at the same time, I realized that people in Kashmir still don't have an opportunity, they don't have anybody to speak to them. Yes, you have the UN resolutions. We have maybe, how many? 23 UN resolutions, and between India and Pakistan, God knows how many, 100 different types of agreements in place. Human rights is one thing, but let's break it down into a little piece. Economics. Kashmir has a huge amount of economic resources that we can do. I was just reading on the news earlier on this morning that one day of protest, I think I spoke about this yesterday, that when you have a economic sanction on a personal level, that how much effect is it really going to have? 100 million, 10 million, 100 million. In Kashmir, per day, it's 10 million pounds. British pounds, which is 100 million Egyptian pounds. A day it costs India in expense if Kashmiris don't do business when there is a strike. Economic-wise, we have water resources. We have water resources that supply north of India, that supply Pakistan, and also has hydroelectric power. That hydroelectric power, when it's generated for electricity, is sent to India. 65% is sent to India. And then we keep a part of it. No, it's actually, we keep 12%.
65% of